welcome to Boosted Rolls, a War Machine and Hordes podcast focused on the EU meta, tournament and tactics. My name's Simon, and I've no idea what I play at the moment because Privateer Press haven't told me what's playable and what isn't.
Hi, it's Tomasz and I play Circle. And today with us we have a very special guest. He's a good friend of mine and he placed third in the recent tournament we are going to talk about. And for those of you who remember the first iteration of Boosted Rolls when we were doing video battle reports, we started doing them together. So please introduce yourself.
Hey guys, it's Tomasz. I'm glad to be here. Happy to join the podcast and hopefully share some interesting information about the tournament.
What faction do you play?
Grymkin.
Great.
Hey. So the reason that you're both on today is because of a recent Polish tournament, right? And was that in Poznan or have I cocked that up?
Yeah, it was in Poznań and the name was Steamhorn Wars.
Excellent. We'll let everybody work on the spelling of that later.
Yeah, 5.
Yeah, 5th edition.
5th edition. Oh, God, no. Right. So what was the format? I'm presuming as this is the EU and people are supposed to care about it, it was Masters, not Champions?
Yes, it was Masters.
Wonderful. And how many players?
Oh, I think we had the highest number of last-minute dropouts in the history of Polish tournaments. 16 people dropped.
Holy Christ.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how many people were there in the end. Like, probably between 25 and 30.
No, it was 30. It was like 28 or so. There was a uneven number for sure because there was a bye each turn.
Okay. And I'm presuming, assuming my math hasn't let me down, that's 5 rounds.
5 rounds,
yeah, exactly.
Perfect. All right. So let's have a think. What were the most prevalent factions? Because I think a lot of people are obviously interested in the Polish meta because it tends to be a little bit different from others, and it tends to draw a lot of attention, especially regarding WTC and so on. People are always sort of, just keeping an eye on what the Polish meta is doing. And so, I think it generates quite a bit of interest. So what was the sort of meta faction breakdown?
Yeah, it's hard to really describe the Polish meta with so many players dropped out from the tournament last minute. But from the statistics, we had Protectorate of Men and Grymkins as the most played faction. Then next was Circle. And with 2 players, we had Kador, Legion, Trolls, Scorn, so Signar. So the spread was kind of even with those 2 factions on top, so Protectorate and Grymkins.
Okay, so pretty much what I'd expect. And were those Protectorate and Grymkin players just largely bringing Child, Harbinger, Dreamer, and High Reclaimer?
Yep, unfortunately.
Not quite bit. I don't think there was any, apart from my Dreamer list, which I never put on a table, there was not much of a Dreamer, because there was Old Witch, Child.
Yeah, that's true. People are mostly playing Child now as the main list.
Yep.
Yeah, we've been noticing a similar thing over here, that Child has become more prevalent and that Dreamer is kind of just useful in certain circumstances, but I think I'm sure we'll get on to chatting about this later. I think we chatted about it a little bit before the recording, but I think one of the big questions is, what do you play in the Grymkin mirror? Because Grymkin are basically top dog. Possibly Harby, but Grymkin beat Harby, so you can somehow say that Grymkin are top dog if you like, mainly because of the Clockatrice, obviously. But you then have the question of, okay, so I'm going to meet a lot of other Grymkins. What do I do? And I think the answer to that for a lot of people has been Child. So but as I said, we'll probably cover that later in more detail because I think Tomek, you said you had a mirror game at some point, so we'll get onto that. Right. Before I forget then, we've talked about, what possible pairings were out there. Let's talk about your pairings. So before we jump into the battle reports and then I forget about the pairings, let's do it. So, Tomasz, I'm going to say Tomasz and Tomek to keep things simple. Does that work? Excellent. So, Tomasz, what were your pairing?
So my pairing was Iona the Varus Host.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
pairing. Excellent. So, was the other list even on the paper just to, give people pause for thought, or did we not bother with that?
Yeah, so my second list was the one we came up together on WTC Bootcamp in your place.
Oh, right.
It was Wormwood in the Varus Host, but I've never put it on the table, so I don't think
that's a shame. I played it that weekend. It was all right.
It's good, isn't it? I just I brought it to fight things I was not paired against, so...
Right. Well, I mean, I'm still definitely thinking about taking it to WTC, assuming nothing goes to completely shit up with the Oblivion stuff. So it's a fine looking list.
Do you want me to give a specific composition of Iona list?
Is your Iona list changed at all from the last ones? Have you tweaked it?
Yeah, from the last podcast, most definitely.
Oh, okay. So yeah, go for it. What was in there?
So it's Iona in the Verse host with Pureblood and a Feral. As my solos, there's Lord of the Feast, 2 Gallows Groves, Wharf Rider, Champion, Ravager, Shaman, Ravager, White Mane, Night Witch, and a Swamp Gobber River Rider. And for units, I have Crockpot, 2 Max Ravagers with UAs, and Bloodweavers with UA. Most of the changes I've made in the list were just motivated to take some strains from other matchups and to make my matchup into Harbinger and Child maybe a little bit better. So I think I've managed to achieve that, and I'm really happy with this list.
Right, okay. So yeah, I mean, obviously I'm familiar with the list, but it's true that we didn't mention the changes, so that's fair. And the Wormwood list, in case people are wondering, it was something we were just playing around with over a weekend that I hosted at my place, and we were looking at Wormwood with like a well and a raptor. And then you basic sort of Devourers host stuff with some Death Wolves and bits and pieces, and it really depends on how Oblivion maps out, but that's the sort of basics of it, so we're not sort of keeping it all secret or anything, but that's just what we were playing with and what seemed interesting. All right, cool. Tomek, what were you pairing?
Well, so my pairing was Child. Again, as Tomasz, I didn't really...
I genuinely just spat cider all over my face. Fucking hell.
Nah, look, but it's not like I totally neglected other casters or lists from my faction. It's just I didn't have much time before the tournament to plan a decent pairing. Moreover, to practice it. At that time I thought I'll be building some bump lists. So as I said, I didn't have time to build it, didn't have time to practice it. So I just rolled with what I was playing recently most. So it's Child with Dark Menagerie, and just took whatever was there. So the classic Dreamer, just to pair it up.
It's easy to pack, right?
Yeah, it's easy. Yeah. So convenient to pack. I've also had some games with it, so I'm basically was aware I'm technically going with just one list.
And if, just for the off chance that somebody, doesn't know your Child list, or perhaps it's different from how other people run it, what's in your Child list?
Well, my Child list consists of 6 heavies, so it's 4 clocks, 1 Rager, and 1 Mouse. There is a Gorehound and the classic 3-point setup, so there are actually only 3 Gremlin Swarms, 2 Krabbits, because there's also a new guy, the Froggy, so Baron Tonglik, and the Death Knell, obviously.
Oh, so you have a Death Knell, because it's not that obvious. Some people don't run it.
Well, yeah, I actually had that discussions with Tomasz a few times, but honestly, I feel much more comfortable with having Death Knell, especially that I'm trying to play into Tharns mostly, so that Entropic Force aura really makes the game for me.
Yeah, and I think we are also discussing that if you are running the Child list as your main list, you're probably better with the Death Knell because it's useful into many other matchups. But I know people that run the Child as a main list without the Death Knell, so it's a preference.
Okay, so yeah, if you've got the option, then why not? Right, cool. I've just sent the photo of me with my face full of cider from the Child comment. I just wasn't expecting it, and I'd just taken a sip, like that moment as you're sipping, and then you said it, and I just literally just went and just blasted my own face with cider, which sucks because it's going to stink later on anyway.
Simon, because we have cameras all over your place as well.
Oh yeah, of course.
And we knew the exact moment exactly.
Oh, it's all over my keyboard as well. Of course, cider. Yeah. Right, let's move along. All right, so those are the pairings. We now know what we're playing, which is essentially Iona and Child. Cool. Anything that anyone wants to specify before we get into the battle reports, before we get into the play-by-plays? Happy with that? Perfect. Just a quick question. Were either of you worried in particular about any one list or player?
Yeah.
Yes, and I think it might be the same player in the same list.
Namely?
It was Paweł Blados from Warsaw, and he was running Zal 2 Double Supreme Guardians.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I was analyzing every list before the tournament, and I told a friend that it's the only one I'm really afraid of and hope to dodge. But for some reason, before each round, everyone wanted me to play Paweł.
And was that the same list that you were trying to dodge, Tomek?
Yeah, well, technically speaking, there were two lists, because maybe not two lists, but two players. I obviously wasn't feeling that secure playing into Tomasz, especially that we tried that one a couple of times already. But yeah, I fear that I don't have any good or real chances playing into Scorn. I even tried, because I called Paweł on our way to Poznan, because I wanted to play a game Friday night. Just to turn myself off any hopes if I meet him during the tournament. And we played the game. All my predictions come true.
Okay. So not your favourite matchup to see then?
Not really.
On the plus side, it sounds like their huge base list has just been shit on from a height. They can't take it in that theme anymore, right? They can't take the Supreme Guardian.
In Exalted, I think you might be wrong.
No. In Exalted they can, but I mean, I'm not talking about the Zal 2 list. The Zal 2 list is solid, but the other list, like the Rasheth or whatever, that just takes all the battle engines and a Hydra.
Winds of Death.
It looks like they can't do that list anymore because they won't get the Agonizers.
Oh yeah, and I think they've removed the Supreme Guardian from Winds of Death, right?
Yeah, that's what I heard. The one that most, like our locals at least, were running the huge base list. They were running it in that theme, and then they've taken the Supreme Guardian out of that theme, so they'd have to run it in a different theme, and then they wouldn't get the free Agonizers, which is a big thing in that list. So I think Scorn may have taken a little bit of a hit in that sense. I don't know.
I don't think so. Like, Disciples of Agony is now so strong.
Is it? Is that the Minions one?
Yeah, Battle Boars and Swamp Horrors. Those are big things.
Swamp Horrors with Makeda sounds disgusting. I don't know, like...
Right, yeah. Xerxes 2, Mackay, all those casters will make them, turn them to 11. They just run the Minion Warbeasts better than Minion Warlocks.
Right. I mean, I can't imagine why you would want to run Scorn Warbeasts anyway. Like, their battle engines are just a million times better. Yeah, so, right. I suppose... I don't know. It sounds rough. Like, if I was playing Scorn, I'd be a bit pissed, because it's just like... I want to play my own faction. I don't want to play minions. What are you doing? Luckily, I don't play Scorn, so fuck them. Okay.
Yeah, now I think with Elastic you can make Turtle 2-inch reach on impact attack, but I might be wrong.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Oh, God. Is that the... No, because they don't impact with the knockdown weapon. Thank Christ for that.
Yeah. Right,
battle reports. Let's do it. So, round one. I've got the scenario thing up here, so we can tell that the first one was King of the Hill. Anyone who might not be familiar with the new scenario names, it's all right because we've got an expert on, ladies and gents. Tomasz knows all of the new scenario names now. So, tell us which one is King of the Hill.
King of the Hill is the one with the Pit 2. So 2 rectangular zones touching the edge of the table, then circle in the middle and the flag in the middle of the circle. And we have 2 objectives on the rectangular zones on the edges.
Yeah, on the corners, right? On the sort of near corner, if you like.
Yep.
Which always dies. So I don't know about you, but I always find I take treasure chest just so at least I get to use it. But
I take treasure chest anyway most of my games, so
I think I do as well, but it might be something to do with the fact that we both play Circle, so we'll see. All right, so King of the Hill. Tomek, we'll start with you. Who was your first opponent, and what was their faction, and how was the game?
So it was a friend of ours from Poland. Now he moved to Norway, actually. So he joined Oslo's meta, if I'm correct. He's playing Pom. So I was playing my first game into Harby. It was a nice game. Actually, it even got a little bit tight in the end, especially on the clock, because it was early. I was not warmed up yet, so I made a big mistake with starting with my Arcanas. I didn't take a curse for Harby. Bravo me. But anyway, there was a lot of new stuff coming into POM. I was not that familiar with it, and I seen that he has Adjudicator in the list. So basically, my plan was, okay, how to just get rid of the Adjudicator or just push it back as far as I can. Hopefully, I was playing Child, so I thought I'm having 30 threat ranges, but it appeared that it's 12 on his side as well.
With Crusader's Call, yeah.
Yeah. So as I said, I thought I have to either bait it and get rid of it or just push it with my Mons. So technically what I did, my first or second turn, I placed Mons exactly in 12 inches, seeing that he has some dudes in front of the Adjudicator. And I had my Labyrinth on me, so I felt secure. Like he either just lose time figuring a way around it or just withdraw the Adjudicator. And he actually made a smart move. I want to mention it because in terms of Labyrinth, not to trigger it, he actually moved the dudes that were in front of the Adjudicator, but they finished their movement outside of my control range, which was not that obvious at first. Yeah. But then he charged with his Adjudicator and traded it for Skin and Mouse. So,
That's not that smart.
So I was kind of happy.
Doesn't sound great.
So yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I baited it with the fact that he maybe thought that I didn't see what's coming. The truth is I didn't see what was coming, but I just thought that if by any means, but if somehow he will get the Adjudicator there, I will only benefit from it, and so that's what happened. And here's the game, and just easier for me. I guess.
You have one skill in Mons, so maybe his reasoning was that he will remove the only war beast that can actually threaten Adjudicator. But I see a flaw in this reasoning because everything else can remove Adjudicator if you focus enough. Clockatrices or Cage Rager.
Yeah, actually, it was a Rager and 2 Gremlins.
One Rager and 2 Gremlins took a Adjudicator from full to nil.
One Rager should do 14. No, it's 6 attacks, doing 7 on average, correct? Your power strength with abuse is the same as his armor.
19, yes.
Yeah, so it should take.
Okay, there might have been 1 or 2 attacks from a Clockatrice or something.
Okay, I mean, it's perfectly possible. I mean, you could just spike. I'm just interested that that's all it took. Like, so, and was that against Kuba?
No.
Yes, no. Kuba.
But different Kuba.
Yep.
Not the one you're thinking about.
There are 2 Kubas that started in Poland and moved to Oslo. That seems unlikely.
Yeah, there are actually 2 Kubas that play Protectorate, are from Poland and moved to Oslo.
Yep.
That is an incredibly low percentage chance. Okay. I'm still not sure if I'm being trolled. Anyway, moving on. Tomasz, what was your first round opponent?
So my first round opponent was also playing Protectorate of Manet, but because he's in a team with Kuba, who's running Harbinger, he's not playing Harbinger, which I was very happy about. But instead, he presented to me something that he called an answer to Tharns, which was Sevvy2 in Creator's Might Theme Force.
I've heard from an English player the same thing, so I'm very interested. Okay, so his Tharn answer, how did it look approximately?
Oh, it was Sevvy2 with his Arknote, Blessing of Vengeance. He had Adjudicator, Heavy, a Reckoner, 2 Redeemers, and then he had Anastasia in Ambush, 2 Warders and Elias Gate, Choir, and Viscot and Roven for Shield Guards.
Oh, yeah. So what was the tech? What was the idea? What's that supposed to do?
He explained it kindly what his list is supposed to do, why it's good into Tharns. There are just a lot of attacks, a lot of shooting, very accurate. He has a rebook on his card, so he can apply that. He has an Arknote. He has a spell that lets him see through forests, clouds and stuff like that. And he has some really, really useful tools in the matchup. The problem being the Adjudicator doesn't have a support from Sevvy2 because it's Sevvy2. So Adjudicator is not as effective. Then those power 12s are really good, but not if Iona fits. So he would need to deliver the fit before I fit, or because after I fit, probably stuff dies and the fit won't benefit him.
Agreed.
And then, I had the Night Witch, so applying Rebuke is okay, but he's trading the Arknote, and I will just remove the rebuke for stabbing my Ravager. So there were some tools, but I think that it was a bit flawed in a way that it looks good on paper, but in application he would need to do things like very well. A single mistake cost him basically too much, and those tools need to be also timed. His feet needs to be timed at a certain point, which I'm not going to give him. So I lost the role to go first, and I went second, which I was happy about because most of my games on the new Steamroller scenarios proved me that I prefer to go second.
Yeah.
So he ran forward, I ran forward. In his second turn, he decided not to fit. He sets a trap for Lord of the Fist, and he does some shooting into one unit of Ravagers, removing few of them, triggering Vengeance. He did some good damage, but not a lot, and he shields all his Warjacks, so I cannot cast Hunter's Mark. Mm-hmm. And in return, I decided to fit. I decided to take what he gave me, even though it wasn't too much, like Redeemer and an Arknote, and surround him with my models. I took the bait with Lord of the Fist because I figured it's a comfortable spot being in his skill box, making him fight threat ranges from a lot of angles, and I'm just surrounding him with my models. So in return, he was forced to counter fit into my fit. He did not do enough damage, and he struggled to contest zones because he needed to run Warjacks there. So in the end, he was left with only Judicator in the middle, surrounded by Ravagers, and I've outscored him.
Right. Okay. I mean, that particular scenario is subtly live, I would say. Like it because it looks a bit like the pit in a sense. You kind of think, oh, it might not be that, but it really, really is.
Yeah.
I think the fact that you have a combination of a flag and a circular zone also might boost the scoring, because once you, for example, get your caster there on a flag and manage to clear the zone, there's 2 points for one, actually.
If you get your caster on a flag, though, he's dead center.
Nah, that's where the child was in my first game. So.
Yeah, the child isn't a normal caster.
Yeah, but this might be the reason why win ratio statistics from this scenario were so interesting.
Oh, you mentioned, so like an interesting point that Tomasz pointed out to me before the show is that they did a breakdown of this tournament, and I'm looking at it now. And one of the statistics that they took was win condition by scenario. And if we have a look at King of the Hill, assassination was 50%. So 50% of the games were played were won on assassination, 1/3 on scenario, and the remainder were on end of turn 7 CPs. Whereas on all of the other scenarios that we're going to talk about, assassination only took 1 in 6. 1 in 6 games went to assassination. And on King of the Hill, 1 in 2. So, yeah, I mean, the fact that middle zone also includes a flag and is so important and maybe leads to some casters trying to get a bit cheeky and moving up could be a thing. Also, it could just be an anomaly. I mean, we've not got a ton of data, right? We've only got like 30 players. So,
yeah.
But it was a big difference, so that's kind of cool. All right, nice. So, both through round 1. Good stuff. And both against Protector and Menoth. That's kind of handy. All right, round 2. Back to you, Tomek. Who was your opponent? It was Spread the Net.
Yeah, okay. So, round 2 was actually one of the WTC players from North. Sorry, we're South. So, from North.
From West.
From the West?
Yeah, there's no North team.
Okay, my mistake there. So I was just joking. Obviously, it's West. So it was Kravat. He's a Ross player.
Yeah, we had him on the show.
Yeah. If any viewers remember our chat, we did have Kravat on, and he was our Retribution player. I think we had a discussion about Tridents with him and so on and so forth. Okay, so you played against Kravat, and what was his pairing?
It was
what did he play against you?
Gareth and Syria, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Both in Legion of Dawn.
Yeah, I'm sure Trident, or did he have one AFG?
No, double Trident in both.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you recall, as at the beginning of our podcast, I told you I didn't have much time to actually think through or prepare my second list. So that was the time that I really regretted this. So because I wish I had Old Witch with either Bump or Dark Menagerie. but I did not. So it was actually the game before which I really considered my second option here. So Dreamer. We had some talk with Tomasz what would be best. If it would be better to stay defensive and wait for some mistakes, or if it would be worth playing aggressively with Child and trying to do some early trades. I went for Child, and we even tried to calculate it if a Trident might fall from a single clock.
Yeah, with abuse.
Yeah, there were some odds, but I think we didn't take hitting into account.
Yeah, like most players, we are just focused on
the damage.
Output.
Right, you didn't factor in the fact that you needed 6 to hit, right?
Yeah. I think I went first. I knew that scenario is live, so if I played defensively, if I let him push me back, he will just win by the scenario. So I was up for a risky but early alpha, and that's what I did. So my turn 2, I committed 2 clocks. I was planning to commit 2 clocks and 1 hound to a Trident. I know it wouldn't be that great of a deal, but fortunately the place where the clocks would end was also convenient in terms of the further game. But I abused my clock, I charged, missed my spray, not that it would do any great damage, but then tried to hit my charge attack and rolled triple once. So so that's when I figured, okay, let's just position in a way that clocks just require some extra effort from Kravat to deal with them. Mm-hmm. And also in a way that hopefully after he finishes his turn, there's at least 1 clock somewhere in a spot that might get to Gareth. His turn, he basically...
So there was obstruction in the middle, right?
Yeah, there was obstruction in the middle, and there was a forest on the left where I sent my clocks. So that's why it was convenient, because even though he had this mage site, yes, that's how it's called.
Yeah.
He would have to use it to get to that close, because they were jumping, placing and hiding behind forest, or getting into melee with someone and just spending some, burning some clock, actually, for both of us, unfortunately. Anyway, his turn. He got rid of the 3 clocks. I think Gorhan as well. Maybe some smaller pieces, some shield guards. But luckily, end of his turn. I had 1 Krabbit, and I remember it because my plan was to run it on Gareth's face and then just force hammer it into Gareth's face and hope it's gonna succeed, and then commit my last remaining clock to kill Gareth. But Kravat suddenly presented me with an unexpected gift. So he placed one of his harpies. So he placed one of his harpies slightly over 2 inches in front of Gareth. And then I was like, okay, so we're doing it. We have to do it. I have to do it. There's no other way for me to win it. My turn 3, his feet was up. I just started with some necessary activations, walked up with Chart, casted some Force Hammer onto Hydra. He actually shot me with it, because on a critical hit, it would be all gone, because Child would be knocked down. Well, lucky for me, it didn't happen. So then actually Tomasz was by the table. I asked him for a lucky blow on my dice. He did it, and there was a decent 5. So a harpy just went through the Gareth, leaving him knocked down. And then I committed my Clockatrice. And in the meantime, I also triggered Wrath. Because of the shot delivered to the child. So
so you had a knockdown Gareth, a Wrath Clockatrice, and that's just game.
I was watching the game. And I saw what was going on. I saw the first hammer. So he rolled the 5 on first hammer. I see the Gareth in range of Clockatrice. And I'm looking around. There's nothing that he can do, even with his feet, trying to trigger some shot. But there was really nothing he could do. So I said all right, this game is over. Went somewhere else. went back 15 minutes later and the game is still going. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, guys? Like, that should be over 15 minutes ago.
Yes, they were actually both Tomek and the other player, Bloody, that we've already mentioned, the Scorn player that just arrived and started mocking me. What the fuck are you doing? Just be over with it. But I was just, I know, I wasn't expecting Kravat not to leave any like backup option for him. I was not aware of all the rules that his models had, so I just tried to ask each and every question I need to ask, not to be surprised with anything. But actually, in the end, how this dude is called, the guy, the solo with the fists.
Yeah, I don't really know, but I know which model are you talking about.
Yeah,
you mean the Retribution one?
Yeah, the one that smites. Because at some point, he made me realize that this guy can also shoot me. I was like, shit, I know this guy has smite, but Kravat, does this guy have any kind of push or whatever with his shot? No, I don't think so. but apparently when I landed my clock, he suddenly popped out his card or whatever, or a phone, and wait a second, because he might have some kind of skill that will push you away. And I'm like, what? Come on, don't do it to me. But lucky for me, it wouldn't work out anyway. So I was home, sweet home.
And Gareth 2 goes down.
Yeah, so I won a lost game, which is always nice.
Yeah, finding an out from difficult situation is a good skill to have.
I think, knowing when you're in trouble and just thinking, right, what's my best shot here, is very, very handy. And as you say, cool that you managed to pull it off. Nice. So, Tomasz, round 2, who was your opponent on Spread the Net?
So, round 2 was a good lesson for me and an interesting game, I think.
Okay.
So my opponent was also playing Protectorate of Manet again, and this time it was High Reclaimer and Harbinger. So I was obviously thinking that he's going to drop Harbinger. I have my Iona tweaked in a way to be able to play into Harbinger. I don't think it's a good matchup, but I have tools. I have a Bloodweaver Nightwitch to remove the Rebuke or something. She has Grievous Wounds. I have 2 Gallows Groves. I have Lord of the Fist, obviously, and I have a Pureblood to threaten her.
So you can give it a go, yeah.
Yeah, so I was focused on Harbinger, but my opponent, for some reason, dropped High Reclaimer. I was happy about that. You know, I'm not playing Harbinger, so that's a win.
Yeah.
We started playing. He won the role to go first. He went first, and he moved all his models outside of Lord of the Fist range, 16, and then he started moving his Vengers like dangerously close to Lord of the Fist, like he didn't care. And he measured 15 inches from Gallows Grove, saying that Pursuit is 15. I told him, no, Pursuit is 13 from Gallows Grove. So he moved those Vengers forward, and then he put a warder in the middle. So he created a nice bunker. So if I shoot with Lord of the Fist, he will just shield guard and I cannot place anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So when I started my turn, I just measured if he measured the 13 inches charge, and he didn't. So
classic.
Yeah, classic. Everyone is just so focused on the 16 inches and shield guard bunker that they forget that I can just charge with Lord of the Fist, right?
Yeah.
So I needed a Hunter's Mark. And so my first activation was to move the Gallows Grove in the range of Hunter's Mark to the Venger. Then Iona went, and I wanted Puppet Master on Lord of the Fist. So I just risked that if I miss the first Hunter's Mark, I won't put a Phantasma on one unit, right? So I hit the first Hunter's Mark. So I put Phantasm, I put Surefoot, I'm sitting on 1, Iona moved like a bit forward, then Lord of the Fist charged, and oh man, it was a good Lord of the Fist run. So he killed like errant officer, some dudes around, some 2 Vengers, I think, then I shot with the bird, and I had, because I removed models around the bunker, I could try to kill Severius 0. I could try to kill the whole unit of Vengers, and if he shield guards, I leave 1 Venger alive, but I get some other models that are worth it, and I get 2 Warjacks that I can maybe cripple the Redeemers, maybe cripple their arms or something, and that would be the game most probably.
Okay.
So he shield guarded I went with Vengers trying to kill the whole unit, and he shield guarded, so I couldn't kill one dude, but I've killed a lot of things around. But unfortunately, I've rolled some Snake Eyes in between. Even with Puppet Master, I wasn't able to take any attacks on the Warjacks. Mm-hmm. So then, after the Lord of the Fist killed half his army, I started positioning the rest of my army. I knew that I don't need to be that cautious. I need to just maybe cover some lines to Iona, because he's probably going to look for an assassination. I started running a lot of Ravagers in front of Iona. Of course, I left White Mane for a surprise counter charge. And then when I was moving my Warp Wolf, my opponent said that I accidentally moved a Crockpot. So at the time, I was just I was thinking about positioning. So I was like, oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't know that happened. So where should I put the Crockpot? Where was it? Yeah. And he's like, it was closer, like a bit on the left. So I moved the Crockpot like almost base to base to Iona, and I've asked him if that's fine. He said that, yeah, that's good. And then I moved my last Warp Wolf and clocked back. So my opponent started his turn by asking me if Iona is in blast range from Crockpot. So I was really mad at myself that I moved the Crockpot. I should just... if it was bumped, it was bumped, but it was definitely not in the place. And the question asking me if Iona is in blast range, being almost base to base,
sneaky.
Just sneaky. But lesson learned. Like, she was of course in the blast range, and I moved the model. So, and to be honest, I didn't really see that assassination.
Fair enough.
So his plan was to kill Lord of the Fist, then use Road to War with one of the Redeemers, give Hand of Fate, give Battle, and shoot the Crockpot. So he was doing some things, but I was really in the mood, just thinking how stupid I was moving the Crockpot so close to Iona. I wasn't really concentrated, and then he moved the Redeemer with Hand of Fate and Battle from the Road to War, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. So you are going to shoot with this buffed Redeemer, kill the Crockpot with your first shot, and maybe Iona won't die because I have one transfer.
Yeah.
And I should really keep my mouth shut because he moved the second Redeemer without any buffs first. So, yeah. Stupid me, but happens. So he moved the first Redeemer, he shoots the Crockpot, and he boosts the damage on Iona. It's like really horrible damage, like 2-1 or something like this. He didn't do anything, and then on Crockpot he rolled boxcars. So left Crockpot on 4 boxes. Then some like really bad rolls, didn't put like any damage on Iona. It was -7 blast, and one missed and deviated somewhere not into Iona. Then the second guy went with Hand of Fate and Battle, and he rolled like really well on Iona, forcing me to transfer, but also he rolled just exactly 4 boxes on Crockpot. So that was my first time in my life that I was happy that someone blew my Crockpot from the face of the earth. I was so happy, and like doing something that stupid. Like I was kicking myself so hard that I just, I'm going to lose the tournament from such stupid thing that I wasn't even like. If I made a mistake, I would say I'm just fucking stupid, and I just need to play better. But in this case, when I moved the model outside of activation, just trying to be fair to my opponent that saw some bump on the table, that was just felt like a waste of the game, really. But Iona survived. I took like, in the end, I took like, I don't know, 3 boxes or something like this without the transfers. He was looking for another out, but there was no damage he could put on Iona anymore. So he fitted some Venger's back, put some damage onto my army. In return, Iona used a fit, placed herself in a spot where she was just untouchable. One Warp Wolf ran to to my kill box, to the edge of the table, just so I have a transfer target.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I've killed like almost the whole army and outscored him on scenario. So that was the game. Very exciting and good lesson. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, the thing is, I'm not sure what you learn from that, because the thing is that you have a reputation for being one of the fairest players when it comes to that sort of thing, when it comes to bumping models, when it comes to takebacks or forgetting things. I think, I mean, and not just because we're friends, but because I've seen you play and because I've seen you play other people, you're willing to offer any take back, bump assistance, move it, like anything that you consider unfair, you'll immediately offer to the opponent. And so what do you learn? Don't do this? I don't think that's the lesson there, because I think the fact that you do that is a really good thing and really good for the community. You don't?
Maybe if someone is focused on something that feel like unnecessary, I don't know how to describe it, but it felt like out of context, like it didn't matter. Like, what does it matter that I moved a model that's very, very far away, you know?
Right.
Yeah,
I see what you mean.
Yeah,
I see what you mean. Like,
it's not the problem that you actually allow the take back. It's that you lost focus in terms of noticing what effect might have on the game, right?
I just wanted to make him happy and didn't really, like, if I put Crockpot base to Iona, I would see that I'm doing it, right? I would think about consequences.
Yeah.
And in this case, I couldn't. So the first lesson is just to maybe pause the clock and think why my opponent is asking for it, or why it could affect the game or whatever. But the real lesson that I can take from it is really just to think about, blasting Iona to death.
Yeah. So ignoring all of the take back stuff and everything else, just don't get Iona blasted to bits. Got it. I'll keep it in mind. Round 3. The scenario was Anarchy. Again, we'll refer to our expert. What does Anarchy look like?
Anarchy is a Steamroller 2019 scenario, which has 2 circular zones placed 3 inches from the side of the table. 2 objectives placed.
Go on. Hit me with the measurements. Let's hear it.
All right. So I think the objective is placed 20 inches from the side and 19 inches from the edge. So
you're saying 2019, are you?
Yes, 2019,
and the other is 1621, I want to say.
Yeah, you're spot on. Yeah, it's 1621 and 2019.
Bravo.
So, Anarchy. Tomek, who is your opponent? What were they playing?
It was Pom again. It was Jakub Brochun, a fellow player from Warsaw. He actually joined us recently, and I think he's doing really, really well. Especially due to the fact that we've been checking some statistics from our Polish league, and I've noticed that because it's me and Tomasz who actually attended the most
tournaments.
Yeah, biggest amount of tournaments this year, and actually Jakub has same amount of tournaments attended, so he really committed to the game.
Yeah, rising star. He plays for a year now, and he already started his own podcast about War Machine. He plays a lot of tournaments. So
yeah, a nice guy, but don't take him to pizzeria with you. that's a inside just dedicated to Jakub if he'll be listening to us.
All right.
Jumping to our matchup, so it was Pom again. He had Harby and Krios 3 pairing. He decided for Krios.
Yeah, that's become sort of a fairly standard kin drop for a lot of Harby players.
Actually, we spoke before the game, and he asked me what he should drop, and I was confused. Like, isn't your Krios 3 supposed to fight Grymkins? And he said he knows that there's a list floating around the internet to fight Grymkins, but his is completely different.
Yep.
So I took a look, and he said like he built it because Krios 3 is just his favorite model, and he put some models he just liked. So we concluded he should drop the list. He enjoys more and he has more practice with, because none of his list felt particularly strong into Grymkins anyway.
Okay. So, how was the game? What happened?
Well, I think I went first, which is very rare for me. But
you mean that you chose to go first, or that you ended up going first?
No. I think I won the roll, and I chose to go first because, well, my strategy with child is to just jump at least half of the table with my clocks and then see what happens. So I think I went first, positioned myself in a decent way, and waiting for his move. He had a bunch of dudes there. The game was mainly around the scenario, and to be fair, I was rolling really good on my clocks, so I just sprayed to the whole unit of errands, some cavalry on the right, and basically just cleared out the right side of the table, allowing me to score both flags, secure my objective, in the meantime destroy objective, and gain a decent advantage, point advantage in CPs. And basically that's what the game was about. He tried to kind of keep up with me, but he was unable. So in the end, due to the lack of models and other options, he tried a CK with his what's the name of the little jack with the pointy sword.
Dervish.
Yeah, there was a dervish under Sevvy2.
So Kuba wanted to concede the game, and he wanted to shake hands like twice. So there were a lot of people gathered around the table watching the game, because I think it was the last game of the round, and the people said hey, you have an assassination, and it was team effort to how to make this assassination happen.
Everyone working together.
Yeah. And before that happened, I made sure that the assassination is such low odds that I don't need to keep those guys just quiet, because they are playing the game and it's a tournament, and both they are 3-0 or 2-0 at this point. So it's not nice to have this kind of conversation around the table.
Yeah, and trust me, it was annoying. It was fucking annoying.
Once I've put it on the odds machine, and I saw the assassination has 0.001%, I started saying, working together to make this assassination happen. So we started looking at odds machine saying, oh, it's around 50%. Playing with Tomek, but really it was just to give the guy that wanted to concede some willpower,
hope, some good feeling or whatever.
Yeah, some boost to actually finish the game, to roll some dice, to have some fun, because.
But the truth is that I didn't know it.
Yeah,
didn't know it, and actually at the time there was this whole chaos started around the table, and they were just freely exchanging ideas of what to activate first, who's gonna do what, and when Charlie is gonna be just blown into the air. I was just thinking about my movements to because I was short on clock, so I wanted to have a secure plan for my next turn. So I just outscore him and go have some dinner, and suddenly I realized that they're working together on assassination, and Tom's comes in with this 43%. I was like, guys, okay, what the fuck, what's going on? I was like, dude, just chill out. I'm like, but no, I want to know what's going on, right? You're discussing some assassination and things. No, just chill the fuck down. I was like, okay, let's see what's going to happen. I had my Desolation Arcana. I chose it for this matchup just to practice it, let's say, because I hardly ever use it, and I think it might have some potential. So I was
those who don't play Kin, which one is Desolation?
Sorry, it's the one that says if an enemy model finishes its normal movement in my control range, I can center a EOE 4 on him and choose whether it's
terrain,
it's a terrain, like basically heal, forest, swamp, some acid buff, burning earth, etc.
Probably not a hill anymore, right?
Yeah, no, probably not a hill anymore. So anyway, I started actually working on some angles because he needed to take my Death Knell first with one of his jacks. So I say if he's sloppy with placement of this jack, I will be actually able to place a forest in front of the child. It didn't happen, and as later it occurred, it didn't really matter. But trust me, for this couple of minutes, I was a little stressed, annoyed for sure.
To be honest, like I tend to get more annoyed about that than a lot of other players. So I think you were quite calm. It sounds like it compared to what I would be.
Sometimes when people chat around the table, it's annoying. But in this case, it was just absurd. Like, seriously, like 15 people.
Like haggling, they were like haggling on a...
Yeah, just working together, like calculating the odds, saying what to activate first, what are the rules, what are the counterplays to it. Like it was just absurd. But the fact that we I shared my phone with people around so they can see that the odds are 0% made it
made it something better. I mean, I think it's funny and fine so long as the player who is Tomek in this situation, i.e. the winning player, is in on it. Like, then it's funny. But if they're not and they're just like, what the fuck is going on? Then
so let's say I was halfway in, halfway out.
yeah. It's like it's questionable. But like I don't know. I think if the end result is, as you say, 0%, and he just has to stress for a minute and then he gets to enjoy the win and everybody gets to have a good time, then obviously I see the argument.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So that was round 3, and you're both now 3-0. Is that correct?
Yeah. There was no bad report from my game, but
I've totally missed it. So, Tomasz, what was your? Sorry, I asked you about the scenario and then I didn't ask you about your game. So, Anarchy, round 3. What was your? Who was your opponent?
So finally, I'm playing something else that's not Protectorate of Menat, and it's Grymkins, and I'm playing against one of the Sosnowski's brothers from WTC team. Central team, so he's my team. He's a great dude. I love playing against him. We've played in some tournaments before, and every game it was just a blast. So in this case, he has Old Witch in Bump in the Night with a lot of Dreadrots for some reason.
Okay.
And his second list was the Child, which was also very weird. Like,
so it wasn't 6 heavies.
No, there were like 5 Krabbits. That was a weird list. Like he wasn't going to drop it anyway. So I went with Iona. He dropped Old Witch. And I won the role to go first. I was happy to go first this time and to put some pressure on him. I didn't want just all those dudes to run into me. Yep,
sure. They're pretty slow though.
Yeah, they are slow, but there's a
not that slow anymore.
Don't they run 10 or they run 12? Because they only get +2 on charge, right?
Yeah, so they run 12. No, they have desperate pace now.
Okay.
Yeah. So and there's ambush and stuff. So I really the point, the deciding point whether I want side or going first was just to be able to ambush first,
Oh, makes sense when you both got ambush, yeah. Although, I mean, it's difficult though, isn't it? Because if you ambush first, it means your ambush is guaranteed to get cleared up by their ambush.
Yeah.
But if they give you an ambush target, it's generally worth much more than your ambushing unit. So.
So. Actually, he had 2 madcaps that I just don't like into Ravagers. They don't trigger Vengeance and they effectively kill them.
Yep.
Also, he had a lot of Dreadrots, and I had a Night Witch. So I figured that my ambush, if he comes in the middle, because we had a game, Tomek built the list Old Witch in Bump in the Night to fight Iona. It was his idea. Right before the tournament, and we had a game. And when he put it on the table, he told me that my ambush just completely fucks him up. And we even played the same scenario, and it was all because of ambush. He was trying to clamp up in the middle, and I was able to surround him.
Okay.
So in this case, I knew that if he's going to clamp in the middle, it's going to cost him a lot. And if he will spread with those Dreadrots, that they are tough, and Ravagers can't Pac-Man so effectively through them. So I figured that maybe I will just ambush my Night Witches, run my Bloodweaver Night Witch to give them killing spree and just, Pac-Man through them. So, And if he give me the madcaps, I will take them, and I don't mind if he ambushes his ambush to kill my ambush. Like at this point, I probably
welcome that.
Up.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. So
one side of the table was really like kind of bad at the first sight, because there were two buildings, they were quite big, and they were in 5 inches in front of my deployment zone. So it was kind of awkward. You need to run around them, and then if you want to back off, you need to back off around them. But I figured out that this might be my opportunity to use Ghostly on Pureblood and Pursuit trick to back off.
You've been looking for that for so long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and finally I had the opportunity to use it, but I didn't. But I had the opportunity to use it, so I'm close enough. So how the game went was I run forward, he runs forward. I kind of got the feeling that he forgot about the ambush. He left both madcaps in the range of my of ambush.
Uh-huh.
So I've ambushed my Bloodweavers, killed both madcaps. I've calculated that it's still like I've traded down because it's trading 12 points for 8, but it's still like he needs to kill those night witches, right?
Yeah, he's got to put something into them, yeah.
Yeah, then I've positioned myself aggressively in the scenario, outside of most of his threat ranges, but I left solo on a flag, which I normally maybe wouldn't do, because he can easily contest. So I left white main, so if his last activation maybe is just send something to contest, I will countercharge, and so on. I put Pursuit on one unit of Dreadrots, and I left Pureblood in the range of those Dreadrots.
Okay.
So Pureblood warped Ghostly, and this is the moment when I figured out that I can use my trick and not take free strike and use the Pursuit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so then his turn starts, and he decided not to ambush. Then there were a lot of those cast games, and that was just absurd. So the first cast games want to get to Bloodweavers. He rolls a 6, he blows up. All right, so another one wants to get into Bloodweavers, rolls a 6, blows up. Another one rolls a 6, blows up, and blows up into another. Another one rolls a 6. At this point, my opponent was just tilted to the
extremes. Yeah, he was heading to the moon on his own rocket fuel. Yeah,
and I couldn't stop laughing. I was just laughing so hard, like apologizing him that I'm laughing, but it's just so absurd, like Cartoon Network, you know. Even those models looks like from Cartoon Network, and then.
Really funny.
I'm just imagining this situation. Oh, poor guy. Right, okay.
Yeah, then he started doing some things, but like nothing really went his way. Like everything went bad, you know, everything went bad.
Did he have the traffic in solo?
Yeah, he had those two of those, but he didn't. He never left the ground, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And then his almost last activation was just fit with Old Witch, blind some dudes, do some stuff, and contest my flag. Then he ran a dude, so I moved my Pureblood to block some lanes and to protect him, and also to keep him in the zone so he cannot score it. And then the dude he ran to contest the flag was outside of command, so he wasn't really contesting, and then he needed to kill his own dudes. Like, I think he lost a bit of focus from the beginning of the turn, and everything just went wrong. But if you think that was bad, wait for my turn. So my turn,
okay.
Iona, it was just easy turn, you know. Iona fits and
deletes
I
everything.
Send my Ravagers using my mini fit, and let's see how many Dreadrots I can kill. And the answer is all the Dreadrots.
He just didn't tough.
Yeah, he toughed like once. I had the Gallows Groves for those first, the closest to me.
Sure.
That I killed with. I've killed those with Vengeance that were in the aura. Then I moved the aura forwards. and I Pac-Man, but like really, like his rolls were super, super bad. Like not a single tough check. He started toughing when it didn't matter because I was full on corpses. So my Ravager, after killing all those Dreadrods, started moving towards Night Slayers. I've killed some Night Slayers, and then I saw Longfellow, so I've killed the Longfellow. Like I've killed the entire flank on one side, and on the other side I wasn't as fortunate, but that doesn't mean I was unfortunate. I just killed a reasonable amount of models. I scored 4 points, and at this point in his turn he ambushed his unit. He started doing some work. Nothing really went how he wanted to, and when he had 2 activations, I've just told him that it's just no way. I will just win on scenario next turn because you are contesting the zone with 2 infantry models.
Yeah, so 2 models, it's over.
Yeah. So maybe those 2 activations you have, it was cockatrices. Maybe it's worth to just run them to contest the zones because there's like you are going to lose. So he did that, but only 1 clockatrice could get into the zone. So that wasn't enough because I just throwed the clockatrice with one of the warp wolves, killed the infantry models, and scored 5 points.
All right, 2 questions. 1, how do you feel about bump into Tharn, considering the power of just Dark Menagerie into Tharn?
Oh, it's a difficult question because it wasn't really a good representation of...
No. This wasn't relating to that game. This is a general question, like including your practice games against Tomek, including that game, including your general opinion. What do you think about Grymkin players choosing to take bump into Tharn?
I don't know. It would depend on their second list. If the second list is child with so many clockatrices and stuff, it's probably not a good idea. Like if it's... King of Nothing in bump with like a lot of clockatrices, that might be a good idea. Like
against Tharn, you mean?
Against Tharn, yeah. I would say that in general, it's not good to drop infantry swarm that's not particularly high in armor or defensive stats into Thorns.
Yeah, because of the Pac-Man, yeah.
Yeah, because of the Pac-Man. I know there are some tools they can like play really wide, and now with those murder crows having a native ambush, they can just put 2 of those and surround Thorns maybe. But it's still like it's risky, I would say. In general, I don't like it, and as a Grymkin player, I would prefer to play Dark Menagerie.
Yeah, so we have the same feeling there. And Tomek, same question to you. What do you feel about Bump in the Night? Do you disagree with us, or do you pretty much think that we're on point?
Well, I started having some thoughts that due to the extended threat ranges and some grievous wounds on the cavalry, there might be a way to play around Tharns and actually stand ground against them with bump. As Tomasz said, we actually had this one game, but everything went into ruin when I realized that his ambush just squeezed me so hard that I couldn't position the way I wanted, and he just crushed me. But without saying too much, I feel the same. Like having clockatrices now, it's much better to go for Dark Menagerie.
Yeah, but, I mean, theoretically, Bump's got some game and there are some tools and stuff, but
yeah,
like...
What I would say is that the Bump now has so many new angles that maybe someone will be able to come up with something new and unexpected that might surprise a Tharn player once or twice. Maybe figure some tactic out that will work, but overall, Dark Menagerie for the win.
I mean, yeeting Nayslayers 15 inches from downtown, and I mean that can work. Just send them in, boom, they die, you bring them back. No,
you have to. The trick is you have to kill them yourself to bring them back, right?
Oh well, probably doable. All right, cool. The second question was what, ignoring the fact that his dice crapped out, ignoring the fact that his cast skimps blew themselves up, what advice would you give to that player that he should have specifically done differently next time?
Roll better.
Was it really just his rolls just shit on him and then he lost his focus?
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's hard to stay on the game when nothing goes your way and no tactic that you want to to do just goes as you want it to. Like everything goes to shit and it snowballs just because you get more and more tilted.
So I suppose you should have just taken a breath, walked away from the table for 30 seconds, and then come back and tried to play a normal game.
If I was my opponent, I would just try to maybe give a lot of stuff. Give a lot of stuff in the threat range, just position not to lose on scenario so quickly, and just look for an assassination. Just try to assassinate Iona, but like push clockatrices, and maybe I won't be able to kill them, and maybe they will stutter. Just play like all in, like just send everything forwards, and maybe something will survive. That's
send it all and set up an assassination with what's left, sort of thing. Yeah. Okay.
That was all he could do, I think.
That's fair enough. So 3-0, and moving into round 4, it's Recon 2. I'm just having a look at the stats, and interestingly, like Recon 2 was one of the ones that was won the most on scenario by percentage. So 2/3 of the games were won on scenario. Only 1 in 6 on assassination, and the other games were won, like I think probably 1 game on CPs and 1 game on clock, something like that. So that's interesting. So Recon 2. So Tomasz, you're round 4.
My opponent was playing Grymkins again.
Oh, okay.
So 2 Grymkins in a row, and he had the Child in Dark Menagerie and Dreamer in Dark Menagerie.
Huh?
And who was your opponent, Tomek?
Okay, so my opponent was a guy. It was a circle player, paired up with I think Iona and Wormwood.
Yeah. So this would be your game between each other. Motherfucker.
He was pushing for that.
It's hard enough for me to keep track of what's going on without you fucking with me. All right. I already forgot one of your rounds. So this was the game you played against each other. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool. So on Recon 2, who won the role to go first?
But look, how about I just give you a little background to the game?
Because, sure.
Actually, it was the last game of the day, and we were paired up together. Two of our friends, so Blady and Jakub, I played my 3rd game against. They were paired up each other as well. So there was an amazing idea. Guys, let's make a break. Just chill down a little bit, go get some pizza, get a rest and stuff. And it all sounded pretty decent.
Get a rest?
Get arrested. It all sounded pretty decent. We went for it. We went to get some delicious pizza. We came back with some beers, all ready to play the game, but we just forgot about one little detail, that it's a tournament full of other players that just finished their games and went for a heavy drinking.
Yeah, there was a bachelor.
Yeah, actually there was a bachelor party of one of the players. So we were back, ready to play. Those guys were all drunk, like super drunk, unbearably drunk. So we set up our models, we started the game, and suddenly some of them started crawling back into the room from the outside. And they were awful. So really positive and shit. But try imagining some of your friends being drunk and very happy about everything and just coming to you and enjoying life and everything
in a way
general.
That doesn't make you enjoy life.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you hard to focus and shit. So
that, for us, it was the semifinals, right?
Yeah, so that was the one thing that we kind of brought on ourselves. So no hard feelings to anyone but ourselves for not thinking it through.
Yeah. Should have just played that game quickly.
Yeah.
So which one of you run the starting role? Do you remember?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what was your thought process?
So it's worth mentioning it was the table that actually Tomasz already played at. The one with there was one obstruction in the middle.
3 times.
Which it was your 3rd time. Yeah. So the table was really good for me because it had a nice big obstruction in the middle that would allow me to force Tomasz to split his forces into 2 and me to maneuver around it. And there was this other obstruction which was twice the size and really close to the deployment, but it was not a problem for me because the Gorehound can walk through, Clockatrice's fly. I just checked if I can get right behind it with my first activation, and there was no problem. So
that's the same abstraction I was talking about.
Yeah, and I knew that Tomasz would probably don't want to be there.
Yeah.
I checked if I can be there. I could, so I just decided to be first because my idea was to push for the scenario as early as possible, get some work done with my threat ranges on abuse and labyrinth in play. So yeah, I went first.
So that's interesting because my thought process was I also thought that the table is good for me. Like the middle abstraction would made Tomek army split into two. Right, I knew that the death knell is going to be annoying behind it, but like I need to split my army into two anyway on Recon 2, I think, and there were two forests on this table. One was in the middle of the left zone, and one was on my flag in the right zone. So that was helpful.
No, it was on my flag.
Oh, maybe on your flag, yeah. And the thing is that we've played that matchup quite a lot in my place. Like we are really practicing this matchup
a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and we found out that if Tomek goes first, it's usually better unless one side gives me some
great advantage.
Yeah. And I felt in this case, one of the side would give me a huge disadvantage. So I might as well just go second and take the one that's not going to fuck me up, So I think if I win the roll, I would go
stay
second.
The same. Yeah. So I guess we were both happy with the choice.
All right.
So how won my first turn, which was pretty quick because, as Tomasz said, we practice it a lot. So it's basically about throwing some abuses on my beasts, mainly Rager to speed them up, and creating two bubbles. Because I have two Krabbits, so once you cage him in between my heavies, and I had a flag there to help me out, you might feel safe from Lord of the Feast. And what Tomasz said earlier about the player forgetting about the charge threat range, I actually remember about it pretty well, and I tried to use it for my advantage because we had a conversation before the game about some other game of Tomasz that he knew he will be playing long and for which he wanted to save his Lord of the Feast until, let's say, the end, just to force his opponent to position around it. So my idea was, fuck it, I need a long game and I need this dude to be out as soon as possible. So I kind of gave him an opening and hope it's not gonna work out that great.
Yeah, okay. But I think you've missed that I could. So in my turn, I started. I measured Lord of the Feast to Clockatrices. There were two in range. I needed the Hunter's Mark. So after I go there, cripple Clockatrices, I can shoot something in the back at the Cage Rager, I think. And then I would get into two Gremlin Swarms.
Yeah, but that was my mistake because I gave two heavies to Clockatrices in range, but I also accidentally left Krabbit hidden behind them, also in range. So Tomasz could just charge into Clockatrices, kill the Krabbit, and then shoot and get to my back. So that was the mistake I did.
With Hunter's Mark, I could get to his shield guard that was making a bunker. So I did that. I killed the Krabbit and then shoot into the Gremlin Swarms. And I figured that I don't really get much value from Lord of the Feast in this matchup into War Beasts. It's usually just to tag heavies with Grievous Wounds. Sometimes I get like a huge activation, but that was in the beginning when we started playing this matchup. Now when Tomek learned to play around it, I don't get that much value. So I figured just getting two Gremlin Swarms and a Krabbit and maybe crippling an aspect on one or two Clockatrices would be enough.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I've killed the Krabbit, but then I've killed one Gremlin Swarm.
Yeah, because you missed.
Missed one, and then I didn't crack the armor on Gremlin Swarm.
Yeah, actually.
And something like really bad rolls there. So Lord of the Fist just killed the Krabbit and Gremlin Swarm, which is kind of fair points-wise.
Yeah, but we all know it's not in terms of his potential. Right, yeah, okay, that's a bit sad.
Then the rest of the army positioned, I was very cautious. I knew that Tomek is going to go for 7 because basically he just told me. He just told me we are in a room together, and he said like my quest for this game is not to clock out before 7, so I figured that he wants to go to 7. I was very cautious. I didn't want to make any mistake. We've played this matchup a lot, so I knew that Tomek is going to give me his best, and I'm not going to have an easy out. But as a second player, I wanted to react. I wanted to look for mistakes he maybe makes, and then punish it for him. Then instead of just playing aggressively, baiting out the vengeance on Ravagers and trying to set the alpha, it was a bit different tactics than I usually would do with Iona.
Okay, well, I suppose also you guys have played quite a few times. You're good friends, and baiting works a little less when people have seen it many times.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, so how did the game progress? Tomek, what was your sort of follow-up to that turn? Do you remember?
So at that point, it was still going really well because, as we've already discussed, Lord of the Fist was out without greater damage done to my army. And next turn, I just focused about repositioning. Maybe I was not sure if I'm gonna push Tomasz back a little bit or just bait, let's say partial alpha on me. But I was focused on taking some of his pieces. So I think I was lucky again with taking the Wolf Rider that managed to go all the way behind that building in my deployment.
No, it was in the next turn.
Seriously?
In this turn you quickly position your army, and what I found smart about it is you've played around your Arcana. Should it hard to say?
Yes.
You've positioned everything in my threat ranges. So I got quite excited about it, and then I remembered that you have Labyrinth, and it's going to be the Labyrinth turn.
Yeah.
So some things were in my threat ranges, some were out. So if I get too excited about it, I would put Hunter's Mark, then he would Labyrinth, and then I would have range only to the Hunter's Mark target.
Yep.
Right.
And usually I don't put a lot of Hunter's Mark. Like in this case, if I would remember and I hit all the Hunter's Mark, I would be successful. But then
I think I already had 2 corpses on my Rager waiting for...
I think this is the moment when I've realized that's a bait. And I pointed it out loud just to remember it. I see the bait, and everything was positioned perfectly so that it's going to, the Labyrinth is going to fuck me up. So I started my turn really trying to
so it's your turn again.
Yeah, I didn't want to make any obvious move, just to actually bait the Labyrinth. So once I got the Labyrinth, I started positioning my models really outside of his threat range. Again, I was very cautious. Game was very cagey. I would say most of my Ravagers were not that far from my deployment zone. I left some things to contest. I think I ambushed Bloodweavers to keep his flag busy, to contest it, to kill a Gremlin Swarm as far as I remember there. And I've hidden some Bloodweavers behind the woods to maybe run each turn to contest this flag. And then I scored my flag, and on my flag there was a big forest. I remember now.
Yes, exactly.
On this side, I was able to hide a lot of models, hide behind the forest. So on my left side, I was really pushed far, but on my right side, because of the forest, I was able to stay in the zone in a way that I wasn't really afraid of losing all the pieces that were there, so Tomek could score. It was possible because I think that I left like 3 Ravagers, but I think also it would cost Tomek a lot to kill them, and there was a high probability of missing an attack and a Ravager dodging somewhere else or something like that, because that was the Surefoot unit with the forest bonus.
Okay.
So I scored a point on my flag, and then Tomek turns.
And then I think I went for the scenario there.
I
took some pieces
The first
out.
activation was the killing the
Wolf Rider
champion.
Yeah, I was like a little bit lucky there because I had my Gorehound right behind the building. He was able to just walk past and just hit the Wolf Rider with some boosted attack and managed to kill her with some boosted damage roll. Got back to the place where he was. Then I think I got rid of some of the Gallows Groves.
Yeah.
Just not to mess my Clocatrices up. The heal, the auto repair. Cleared out my flag, and at that point I don't remember. Did I clear out my rectangular zone, or were there any Ravagers in?
Yeah, I think you did.
Because I feel like I scored 2, while I could score 3.
You sent the Clocatrice into objective.
Yeah, but the fact is, I've sent 1 Clocatrice, but it was close. Let's say it was within my planned formation, but then I left objective on 2 or 3 boxes.
Like some bad rolls and...
I don't remember exactly how it went before, but at the end I had a decision either to commit another clock to the objective and secure the kill, or play it safe and try to take it out with my spray. And boosted sprays failed me, but I actually gave that clock away anyway, so that was my biggest mistake for that turn.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, we were 2-1, and now the game actually started.
Yeah, this is the turn when it swinged. So I was really pissed that Tomek is putting a lot of damage onto my pieces, making everything paralyzed, all my Warp Wolves, my White Mane, and things like that. But he didn't touch a single Ravager, so I didn't have Vengeance, and that was
actually it's worth mentioning now that we were in a path, let's say, because you sent some Ravagers to jam my Clocatrices. And I didn't want to hit them, not to trigger Vengeance. But when I was walking past by them,
I didn't want to trigger a Wrath. So I didn't make any free strike.
Yeah, so
that was like also annoying. But I knew that Tomek is trying to make the best of his Arcana, and I think that in this case he made even more value from the Arcana because he could.
Yeah, I could freely avoid some of the Tomasz positioning. Was nice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Fair enough.
Anyway, going back to the game. At this point, I fit with Iona, and I had nothing of value in my ranges except of the Clocatrices. 2 Clocatrices, I think, or maybe 3.
Because the one that I felt like I'm not committing to you was actually committed.
Yeah. So I have 3 Clocatrices in my range, and with Clocatrices, it's a gamble, you know. If something goes wrong, if I cripple aspects too early, they will jump back out of my ranges. So I need to start with my separate activations from backlines and move towards my front lines to make the most out of it. And I need to fit with Iona at this point, because if I won't fit now, I'm not going to have a good fit anyways. So let's roll some dice and see what happens. So the first activation was Iona charging into Clocatrices, Clocatrice with fit. I've crippled an aspect, it jumped back. Then the next activation was Night Witch into another Clocatrice. I removed the Discord spell.
Discord and my upkeep. My anime.
So that was cool. Night Witch was
huge
value.
Might have to switch that Eilish back to a Night Witch.
Yeah,
definitely.
Wait for another game. So Night Witch removed those. So then I think I went with the White Mane. White Mane was paralyzed, so I just could do some cheap damage onto Clockatrice to trigger a stutter. Then Ravagers went in. I think I was really lucky with one of the Clockatrices not removing aspects until the last attack that killed it. Then I've killed another Clockatrice using a lot of resources. And then
And one of them should be alive.
yeah, the Clockatrice jumped back from all my Ravagers but one. So this Ravager made his last attack, and I needed to roll very, very high. There were like, I don't know, 11 boxes on the Clockatrice and something like that. And I proceed to roll 665.
And that's when I broke.
Yeah.
That's when I lost it.
That's dirty.
I really lost it, guys.
Yeah, Tomek went just raging mode.
Next turn, Tomasz is moving his models. I'm like, you can't. No, you can't do this.
Actually, I rolled a 17 and you're like, you didn't.
You didn't.
I'm trying to figure out if there's something illegal I did or something. You didn't. That didn't happen. No, I'm not marking damage. That didn't happen.
just flat out refusing to mark damage. That's a good way to win.
I think I was
Call the judge, he's drunk.
Yeah, I think I was waiting like 2 minutes until he marked the damage. He left the Clockatrice, he didn't mark the damage. I started doing other stuff, and I was waiting until he calms down to remove the Clockatrice, but it didn't seem to happen. Like
it just wasn't coming. He's like, nope, just leaving it there.
Didn't happen.
Yeah, and
this is the table state. Look, the Clockatrice is clearly there.
Where are your dice? Where are your dice?
Yeah, you show me the dead Clockatrice. I see a live one. Show me these dice that have got 665. I don't see them anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice. So, what was the win condition in the end?
Scenario.
Yeah, just took it down a scenario. All right, nice, cool. As we are sort of slowly approaching the 2-hour mark, I guess we'd better.
We'll do some cats, no worries.
So tell me about we'll start with the non-finals game and then we'll talk about the finals. I think that's usually probably the way to do it. So Tomek, who was your opponent in the last round? And I guess this was the following day, yeah?
Yeah. This is the following day. We were again lucky with the matchups because Tomasz was paired up with a friend from Warsaw, and I was paired up with another friend from Warsaw he played with earlier. So it was Karol Arhain, a Grymkins player. Yeah. Same as it goes same for me. I always enjoy playing with Karol. We played. It was our third game in the tournament, I think, and I was really eager. On one hand, I was really eager to play into Grymkins to see how the matchup goes. On the other hand, I fear that I might not be that successful into playing into Bump. I knew I'll be playing into Bump with Karol because his child list has fewer heavies than me, so obviously he couldn't drop it.
Right, you didn't play that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, whoever has more heavies wins with Death Menagerie, I think. So I knew I'm gonna be playing into Bump. It was a really live scenario again because it was we didn't mention it, right? It's a new.
I didn't mention it. No,
yeah,
sorry,
it's a new Mirage.
Bunkers.
So 3 flags, 2 rectangular. New incursion. Okay, Tomasz, just give us the measurements. Okay, no, just these were the 3 flags in the middle, 2 rectangular zones. I won the roll.
2 objectives in the zones as well.
And 2 objectives in the zones. So very lively scenario. I won the roll. So my plan for the game was to move everything as far as I can, possibly to the line of the flags or even further, to allow myself blocking him from getting through.
Yeah, so you can score your rectangle in his
so I
turn.
could score my rectangular, get to his objective, and if I'm lucky, score some flags.
So quick scenario.
But I wasn't sure how it's gonna roll out because with his amount of models, I knew that he would be probably able to contest flags very effectively, and if he managed to, and I knew he has an ambush, so I knew that if not from the second turn, from the third turn, I'm gonna have some crows in my rectangular zone. So I knew that it will go very quickly, and either I will manage to win on a scenario somehow. And if not, my backup plan was just to chase Old Witch back as far as I can and possibly maybe get an angle on the assassination. The problem was he had clockatrices, and I tried to avoid them most of the game, but having them on the table, if she would have, I don't know, 5 or 6 transfers, I would probably didn't manage to CK. Anyway, I went first, pushed forward, secured the scenario, positioned myself in a way so I can get at least 2 heavies to his rectangular zone, destroy objective. He had those Trapperkins, right? Trapperkins?
Yeah.
I never played them. I don't. These are actually the only models that I don't have at this moment. So I wasn't sure what they do. I expected him
piss you off as well.
Yeah, piss me off. I was expecting him to try to get my Gremlin Swarms with it because I checked if they had magic attacks. So there was a nice, decent building next to the middle flag. So, and he placed one of the actually both of markers there. So I blocked one of the markers with 2 of my Gremlin Swarms in a way that he just can place his guy this direction. But what I didn't figure out is that he can put one of the other one and just run to my rectangular zone around the skin and moons. If I got it, I maybe would position my skin and moons that it wouldn't be that easy or possible at all. But anyway, he prevented me from scoring turn 2, and he got the early point, 1 point advantage. Or even 2 point advantage. I'm not sure. Anyway, he
on
had
turn
the first,
2, I guess he probably managed to clear his rectangle and prevent yours, right? So the question is just whether he scored a flag or not.
Yeah, he had, so let's assume he had 1 point, so he had the advantage. It might have been actually even 2 points, because then I was really struggling with the decision. Okay, do I just, because the Old Witch was on my left, so do I just push everything forward to the left and score whatever is on the left and hope that's enough and that I will have a way out with an assassination? But there was this right flag, had just one model contesting it. It was a Caskimp, I think. So I'd say, fuck, it's a real waste not to score it, right? And I had my frog there, Baron Tonglik, and I say, okay, I can just walk him up, jump right on the flag, and just slam that Caskimp with the tongue, which has 3 inch, which is pretty decent.
Yeah, just consume it.
But he only has 5 mat, so it's always a huge gamble with this guy. Anyway, I decided for it. I jumped with the guy, missed obviously. I said, okay, fuck it. I went to do some other activations. I was nearly done, and I had a caster. Child was activated. I had a Death Knell and one of the Clockatrices. I was like, okay, do I send this Clockatrice towards Old Witch again, and then move my Death Knell this side as well to help me clear Dreadrods, just to prevent some tough rolls? Or do I score this fucking flag? So I say, okay, let's charge with Death Knell. It's cavalry. So I measured there was a 3 inch to get a charge bonus. And like, okay, I'm home, and then I will send the Clockatrice towards the Old Witch. So I charge with Death Knell, miss a 6, whatever boosted hit. Just say, fuck no, I committed those 2 models already. So let's just get the Clockatrice there. I had to fly over the Dreadrod, just get a free strike, but I landed there, killed it, scored that point, and that actually was a really nice decision. Because next turn, Carol, I think he get rid of 1 or 2 clocks, and he moved back with his Old Witch. Anyway, he just did some damage to my beast, started positioning, cleared out one of the flags, cleared out the other. No, actually, he didn't clear them out because he didn't score. But the thing was that I was closer to the end. I was figuring out what the fuck is he doing, because I see an opening for me to score some more points next turn and win for scenario. And the truth is, he admitted that he just miscalculated the points, and he left too few models for me not to clear the flags. Actually, most doubtful move for me was to clear my rectangular zone with Child, throwing boosted Force Hammer on the other Trapperkin. But this worked out, and when I was 4-2, I managed to score 3 more points.
Yeah, so the same thing happened in my game with Carol, and I think that people are just not used to new scenarios, and they are not really. They don't really know how live they are. And I think that's the thing. If you are playing bump, you have so many models that you usually flood the zones, and you're not afraid of the losing on scenario, right? You are focused on attrition, and I think that's something that caught him off guard.
Well, next turn I would be done because he had a whole unit of murder crows next to my rectangular zone. I think Gorehound and Lord Longfellow were flanking me as well. And as I say, to kill Old Witch, I would have to get rid of at least one Clocatrice, if not two, or maybe force her to spend some Fury. And even then, it will be doubtful. So,
lucky out.
I was lucky out again.
Well, fair enough. I mean, if you get it, you get it. No, it's fine. Cool. All right, so you managed to finish the tournament 4-1 and pretty happy, I guess. And what position did that put you in with that? Did you manage to make second, or was it third or fourth?
No, it was third because actually the second player was bloody, and he had some decent opponents who just gave him a higher sauce.
Okay, so he got the sauce.
It was 19, cool. I was 16, I think. So there was.
I mean, still really solid result. Cool, man. I'm very pleased. Congrats.
Thanks.
So, Tomasz, the final. Who was your opponent?
So my opponent was Pavel Blados, playing Scorn, Exalted, Zal2.
And it was double SG, you said, yeah?
Yeah, double Supreme Guardians, one Hakar, one Ancestral Guardian, 2 units of Immortals. Battle group had Brute, Kriya, Agonizer, and Shaman.
Yep.
So we spoke about the matchup during the breakfast. I have asked in a Circle Dojo for some advice because I don't have Scorn locally, and even though I've played the Exalted matchup a few times, I'm not that familiar with it, like not an expert there.
You have to drop Iona there's no question.
Yeah, so I know that I have to drop Iona. It's just a question how to approach the game. And Pavel plays his list very aggressively. I saw it a few times, and we played a game in Krakow already. So I know that he will pick a position he likes for Supreme Guardians. He preferably will go first. He will run them 10 inches. Then second round, he will run them 10 inches and fit. So the thing is that you can go in, probably kill only one, and the second one will back off and bring back Immortals for value and be a late game beater. Or you can back off and probably lose on scenario. So yeah, I had a puzzle to solve.
What's the math on Iona Feated Ravagers? How many do you need to kill one?
You mean like on average?
I mean, to be confident, like how many would you send in to confidently kill a Supreme Guardian under
I'll
his
tell you in a second, all right?
Okay, we're going to get there. Okay.
So I knew that I want to go second. I started going through it in my head. Before the breakfast, I spoke with Tomek in the room, and I was telling him, like, man, what should I do? And I was trying to imagine the threat ranges, like calculating if I go first, what happens, if I go second, what happens, just judging by the fact that I know he's going to run 20 inches, if I'm able to back off. And on this scenario, I'm not able to, like, it went through my head, but it's just something that you cannot do. You need to threaten them on the fifth turn on bunkers. So I figured that I will just I've did a run some math on the Ravagers and stuff. I figured that I will just kill one and change the flank. And I want to go second. I knew that Pavel wants to go first because we spoke over it during the breakfast. I approach the table. I see a forest in the middle. It's not a huge forest. It's something that just gives a nice parking lot for white mane. Not something that will give me a huge advantage in the game. Pavel wins the roll. He chooses to go first. He offers me to deploy without the clock, to take 2 minutes of the clock, and we can just talk a bit during the deployment, have a chat, and that was very nice, especially that as a second player, I could counter deploy. So I really took advantage of it. I had a plan going on in my head. I knew that I want to have a Night Witch in the middle to cover both of Supreme Guardians because I don't know which one is going to have vision. Then I need to have my Gober River Rider that I've put into the list instead of Gober Chef only for this scenario, just so I can charge and dual attack into opponent's objective to contest in the second round, right?
Yeah.
Because that's an issue to contest this zone. You cannot do it with ambush. Then my plan was to counter deploy the Agonizer. So he had an Agonizer kinda in the middle, but a bit to his left. So I put my Pure Blood a bit to my right, and the plan was to go in with the Pure Blood, with Treasure Chest, reroll from my objective, and with Puppet Master. I need a boosted 12, so I should be able to kill the Agonizer.
Okay.
And then I need another Warpwolf on the other flank, so I have like them symmetrically. I put Ravagers symmetrically, White Mane in the middle, so everything else is like symmetrically, except on the left side, that terrain was better for me. I put a Wolf Rider Champion. So this is the thing that makes my one of my sides a bit better, the terrain advantage and the Wolf Rider Champion, which isn't a huge power, but it's something, and the Feral was more on the left side. So I knew that if I'm going to prioritize one Supreme Guardian, it's going to be the left one, and then the right side is going to run on the left, and we will play horizontally.
Okay.
So speeding up the battle report, the Pavel runs forward, I run forward, I put my Night Witch to be as far as possible, but also as safe as possible, hidden behind objective, because he cannot target objective with his AoE spell until my second turn. And then everything else is just, Agonizer moved a bit to the left, so I moved the Pure Blood a bit to my right, and so on and so on. So round 2, he runs everything forward, he fits as expected. 2 Supreme Guardians are in front at my face, and they are not screened. So I proceed with my plan. I need to go in. I prioritize the left one. I start with Gober River Rider charging the Supreme. Funny moment was that Pavel asked me to pass the clock into him, and I'm like, "Ooh, defensive strike," and he's like, "Yeah, what does Gober? What does he do?" I'm like, "Oh man, I don't know. I need to check the card. That I have some tricks." And at this point, I thought it's just he's just joking. But he wasn't. So I gave him the card, and he's like reading it, and I'm like, what the fuck?
It's a River Raider. It's a 1-point solo.
Yeah. So he started asking questions like, what can I do if it's just the -2 defense and strength and things? And I was like, I don't know. So he realizes I'm just messing with him and did not defensive strike the Gober. And I was able to shot his objective and contest the zone. Then the next activation is the most important activation, which is Night Witch charging into the Supreme Guardian with vision. So I was kind of hoping that Pavel doesn't know what's coming, and I charged the Night Witch into the Supreme, waiting whether or not the defensive strike is going to happen. But of course, Pavel is a great player, and he defensive strikes.
Yeah.
So he misses. He was aware that what I'm going to do, but he misses the Night Witch. He rolls like really low, and she stops him with. I did some pretty good damage. Like I really spiked the damage, also removed the vision. So that was something that gave me hope in this game.
What was it? Dice off 11?
Dice of 13, I believe, because I was in Agonizer. That was a mistake. I wanted to start with the Pure Blood, killing the Agonizer, and this was the moment when I spiked. It was the moment when I realized I could actually do some damage. I was just focused to remove the vision. I forgot that she actually on Iona's feet turn does pretty good damage.
Work.
Yeah, and also it's worth mentioning. I started with Iona doing casting. Doing fit and then casting Hunter's Mark 3 times on this Supreme Guardian just to increase damage output of the Feral so he can charge for free.
Yeah.
So the next activations is the unit of Ravagers, because at this point I was able to put all 7 of those into Supreme Guardian.
But you left the Agonizer up?
Without the Agonizer aura.
Okay.
I had just enough space to put all of them there. So I went in, and I think with my last attack I killed the Supreme. Pavel wasn't happy about it. I was able also, not with the last attack, because I was also able to kill 2 immortals next to the Supreme that were contesting the flag.
Oh, nice.
Then I figured out that if I killed this one Supreme with the unit of Ravagers without committing the Feral and without committing the White Mane, I might be able to remove the second one. And I figured it's worth the gamble. So I could put 6 Ravagers onto the second one. And so I figured that I will start with the Pure Blood, with the Puppet Master. If I kill the Agonizer, I just go for it. So Pure Blood went. I unfortunately misplaced him from the objective. I focused to chase the Agonizer. He was a bit too far away from objective. So I gave him Puppet Master, needed 12. The first roll was 11, second was 12. So I removed the Agonizer. So that was good. Then Ravagers, 6 Ravagers charged into the Supreme. Pavel did in this defensive strike because I had a White Mane waiting and the Feral.
Okay.
And my the first one rolled like 2 damage, another one rolled like 2 damage, another one rolled like 2 damage, and Pavel was really happy. I wasn't about it, but the next one rolled like 11 damage, and another one rolled like 11 damage. I was just spiking to the end. Even with both attacks from corpses, I started doing some damage, and I've killed the Supreme Guardian without any help. So I still had a White Mane and a Feral. So Pavel was pretty pissed at my dice. Then I've just I left enough models in his threat range that I didn't need to position anything, keep back. Like he didn't have enough activations to remove those that I gave him, so I could just comfortably
throw everything in.
Yeah, everything in. So I throwed the White Mane trying to kill Hakar. I didn't succeed. I positioned Feral so I can score my rectangular zone, and I tried to cover Iona just so he don't go for an assassination, or maybe he doesn't have an angle. And also, I send the Lord of the Fist to kill UA of the left Immortals, because at this point I've triggered Vengeance on the left unit. I put Solo on the flag, and I scored 2 points, being up on attrition. So it's looking good. I'm waiting for a handshake from Pavel, because he's like pretty pissed, and it looks really awful for him. But what happened is he started by saying that he's going for an assassination, but this assassination wasn't really likely. I was camping none because of those 3 hunters mark.
Yeah.
But I was far away, covered, but by a lot of angles were just covered, and he needed to kill a lot of Ravagers just to put an Arc Note into me. And most of those souls were taken by solos and UAs and stuff like that. So
Zal didn't have that many.
Yeah, like 9 or something total. So he decided to play the attrition game. So he started with doing some vengeance attack. Nothing really happened. Then on my right, so the unit with Surefoot was charged by Immortals, and that was swingy again. Like, he hit every 9 he needed, and he one-shots every Ravager, and I haven't passed a single tough check. So I had Surefoot, I was under the feet, so that was very swingy. And good for him.
All right, fair enough. So that made things interesting. Nice for a finals. All right.
And then on the left side, because with Vengeance he was already engaged and there was no UA, he didn't do a great damage. He missed some attacks. I passed some tough checks, so that was lucky for me. And you could clearly see that he's dominating the right side. I'm dominating the left side, so forces started to swing kind of that way.
Okay.
Then we started, like, it was a grind. Like, I'm not going to bore anyone with it. It's just...
Iona's Zal 2 is always a grind. It's just...
Yeah, exactly. Back and forth. Might Bloodweavers ambush and do some good work, removing aspects from his Shaman and his Brute with Grievous Wounds, keeping his Rectangular busy. And in the end, we arrive at it was like started to be really tight. We had very few activations in the end, like 3 models on each side. I had maybe a bit more models, and we started just, running to score and contest. Pavel was up because he started using Zal offensively to charge something and then cast spells somewhere else. He removed my objective, but I wasn't able to remove his objective. And the only thing that made me win the game was the fact that I went second, so I was able to score last, and I won on 7th on tiebreakers CPs. Yeah.
Okay. By how many?
1 CP. It was 11-10 or something like that.
Wow. So from a very swingy early game to a very close end game.
Yeah, if he killed one more Ravager in the end with Zal, he showed me how he should have done his activation, and assuming that because I was very unfortunate in my last turn to remove Abidan, he survived the Crockpot and Ravager charge. So if he killed one more Ravager, we would go to points killed. But because I had a single Ravager, that's of course 15 or 20 points, not sure how the UA works. And I had a Crockpot and Shaman, so I would win on points killed. But very, very tight, very good game. And Pavel is great opponent, always gives you a great challenge. So the finals experience is something to be remembered.
Oh, well, I mean, I always think that's really nice. I mean, you always want the finals to be a big game, a close game, and when it actually is, that makes, obviously, tournaments a bit more memorable. So that's cool. So, if anyone's wondering whether you can run Zal 2 into Iona and still be okay, the answer is maybe not.
Yeah, just roll good or concede.
So, think hard before you go for that plan. Or spike the opponent's dice. All right, cool. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Sadly, I don't think we've got enough time to do a full breakdown on Oblivion stuff and our opinions on that. But I'm sure we'll have another tournament soon and we'll get a chance to chat about it. And obviously, there's still a lot of Oblivion stuff coming out every day. The Legion spoilers have just come out during this podcast and so on and so forth. So, we'll have time to talk about it. Any last remarks before we wrap up?
No, thanks for the invitation again, and yeah, hopefully play some machine.
Our pleasure. Thanks for sharing the kin knowledge. That's always good to have, and for the detailed reports. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Yeah. Cheers.